Right. This is the second round of interviews for the Billy Morrow Jackson fundraising print. And we have here two of CCHCC's most fabled members. Could you introduce yourself, gentlemen?
I'm Mike Doyle, and I was one of the early members of the Healthcare Consumers and was executive director on a couple of different occasions over the last 30 years.
And I'm Gary Adelman. I was a board member at the time that we asked Billy if he'd create something for us to help with raising funds and the protest in general. And that was way back in 1992.
All right. Okay, so I think first we want to start off with asking how the idea of getting community art and using that as a fundraiser, how did that come up? And I think the second part to that question is, how did Billy get into the framework for being the artist for the piece? What made you choose him?
Well, I think, at the time we were going through all kinds of planning for fundraising and thinking of new ways to do it, and Gary had joined the board, and I think you came up with the idea both of the concept and approaching Billy on it. Why don't you tell a little background on that?
Well, Billy was at the time an extremely well-known painter, and he had done powerful graphic posters that are in museums, a set of them on civil rights, and I knew that, of course, and I knew them when I asked him I was the president of the faculty union at the time, to do something for us, some logo, and he did something again that was impossible to anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
The artist imagination is wonderful when you're dealing with somebody who's endowed with it, and Billy certainly was endowed with an imagination, as you see in the print that we're discussing now. And so because he did something for the union when I was president, and that was back in '76, and because I came close in my mind to seeing the whole set of those civil rights protest posters, when I bought one of his canvases for a son of mine who was getting married, I thought of him immediately, and I wanted to contribute something to the organization that was, a little unique, that justified my going on a board with Mike Doyle, I've always had a crush on him.
It's mutual.
And so that's how, we decided that, we would ask him, and we went together to do that. And maybe, Mike, you can...
Well, I just remember, again, we were sort of kicking around these ideas, and you were always energetic about coming up with something and get me excited about it. And so, I remember it was sort of a nice spring day like today, and we walked over to his house from your house, and he just wanted to, and you might have talked to him beforehand on the phone or something, but I mean, what I remember is sort of sitting there in his living room and just talking to him about healthcare consumers and organizing and the healthcare crisis, and it was very informal. I wasn't sure what was going to come out of it, but I think it was just sort of getting his appetite wet a little bit about what we're doing and the protests that we had going on at the time. And of course we were fighting for universal health care back then, and 15 years later here we are still doing it. But I remember that afternoon being sort of a sunny, nice day and talking to Billy about this.
Tremendous man. I met him the first year that I came to the campus. He was on a little board with another guy in music, Royal McDonald, protesting the war, done in the official capacity of a university auditorium, in which I made a fool of myself and got to know Billy as a result. But Billy, I see him chiseled. He had a hard flint, physiognomy in my mind, whatever he looked like, and
kind of wiry guy.
Really strong and a fire that was communicated in the stuff that he said and did, and we were floored when we were surprised at the detail of the work that he presented to us. because we gave him a little bit of the history, and we see his vision. And the detail in the vision is really what makes the thing unique and, timely. It's amazing. We have the same president, father and son. We have the same revolting circumstances in the greed of a banking industry then and now, portrayed in the canvas. And we have a contagion of death, which is so timely because of what's going on in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, it just seems as if this thing was created for us at this very moment, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, it's a little scary that it carries so well over 15 years with the same kinds of things there. But in some ways, that's what's universal about it. I mean, there is this sense of, and the people there protesting and standing there. So you have sort of the crisis the country's facing, and yet individuals standing shoulder to shoulder to challenge the way things are and trying to bring out change, which I thought was so cool, because that's, here are the healthcare consumers all these years, and organizing around stuff and winning these small victories in this sort of morass that is our nation at times, and which is plugging away and fighting for those things. And he somehow captured all of that, both the impending doom of the crisis, but at the same time people standing up and trying to make a difference in it.
And the organization just doesn't succumb to futility. It's crazy.
Right, isn't that weird? Yeah. Yeah, it's very... And I remember, so we went over and we talked to him, and again, it was sort of, I wasn't sure what was going to come out of it, and then, and I hadn't seen the civil rights posters that you had mentioned, so I had no idea really what we'd be seeing. And I remember when we came back, I don't know, it was a few weeks later, a couple of months later, and actually he took us into a studio, and it was mostly done. Some of the etchings and stuff weren't complete, but I mean, I was just floored at looking at the detail. I mean, because whether it's the sheet draped over the corpse or whatever, I mean, just the incredible detail of the ink work and stuff like that, it just blew me away. And I remember, sort of like you're looking at it, as with other great art, and what do you say? You just sort of hits you. And like you were saying, he has a way of just hitting you with a fist in the gut. I mean, it's there, and it makes its impact on you.
Yeah, pulls no punches.
And it's aesthetic.
Yes.
Also, I mean, it's not just graphic, but it has an artistic quality to it that makes it unique. And, I just thank him. He died within the year. This is a kind of memorial too, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way, yes. Now, you had mentioned the protest. There was a protest going on, or the startings of a protest. Now, what exactly, was that around the war at the time, or was that healthcare in general?
Well, it was around healthcare. I mean, so this would have been 92. So at that time we were dealing with, I think it was just starting up the Medicaid discrimination fight at Christie Clinic. I mean, here we are. You even take some of the local issues we were tackling. I mean, where the clinic, the doctors weren't taking new Medicaid patients. We had a couple of cases, particularly pregnant women, who started seeing an obstetrician when they were pregnant, and then went on Medicaid over the course of their pregnancy and were no longer allowed to go in, and led to a huge fight over a couple of years with Christie Clinic. And eventually there was that march outside of Christie that Monty, Monty Bazell, I remember there, she was chair of the board at the time, and sort of up front.
In it too,
yeah, and they agreed to change their policies and stuff like that. So again, it was that sense of standing up to the powers that be, and in some ways, it's the same issues that we tackle today.
Right, because didn't we just go into Iraq then too?
Yes, it was the Iraq War. It just Iraq War won.
Yeah,
it's hard to kind of
and the terrible first bombing of the World Trade Center. Wasn't that at
it was about that time. Yeah, a little later.
Oh, was it a little later?
I think
92, 91?
It was in Clinton's year, so I'm not sure.
Oh, I see.
A
little later. Oh.
The one thing when I look at it is that one of the things that was going on then was the, although we've known for 3 or 4 decades that cigarettes could kill you, it was right about then when the cigarette companies' complicity with hiding the fact that they had all these studies, they knew it was causing cancer, and they just buried them. So in there it has, I think it's George Bush offering someone a pack of cigarettes. So right at the height of that, sort of when that was sort of breaking onto the scene, that in fact the cigarette companies had been manipulating the nicotine so to get people addicted to it and all that. So that was one thing when I look at it where, I think about how the world's changed. In some ways, the view of cigarettes and cigarette companies, although people still smoke, I mean, it is a place where people have made progress, and we've change some of those things. But
Definitely.
he captures all those things. I mean, the more you look at it, the more you see little things. You know, there's stuff in there about South Africa,
Yes,
stuff like
and
that. So,
apartheid,
yeah.
yes.
So,
So when you communicated this kind of general, well, not general, but these issues present in Billy's community, did he seem knowledgeable? Was he shocked? Was he more understanding and did he need inspiration
No,
for
well,
this?
he didn't, I mean, my recollection, I mean, I'm a fading professor, I don't know. But what I recall, you may have a different impression, is that he didn't show he showed very little emotion
right.
to us. I mean,
Yeah, it wasn't clear what we were doing there in some ways. I mean,
No.
I left and it was like, oh, that was nice, but, you know,
Yeah,
from that something's going to come.
but you know, it's amazing, there was an eruption, something that, of course, you know, the challenge is in the work, and the art itself, you know, creates the challenge for the artist. You don't have to be, you know, a cafe-inspired ideologue.
Yeah.
But Billy, I mean, he was into social justice,
Yes.
and he was not adverse. You know, when it was unionism, I mean, he was on the right side. His intuition was great,
Right.
and he demonstrated this through his work.
Yeah, and he, you know, there was no sense of shock, like, oh my God, this is going on. Because, and again, if you look at the posters he did and the civil rights stuff, clearly he understands how brutal oppression is and the struggles that people go through. I mean, some of those were very powerful also. So, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't new to him. I think it was more the context of the organization, how we viewed ourselves, you know, because here you are sort of fighting all these things, and I think what he wanted to do is sort of capture the sense of, you know, average people struggling to make the world better in spite of the fact that, you know, we're struggling for a healthcare system, and was national healthcare going to happen? I think people were hopeful after the '92 election you might actually see, but at that point in time, it was like, how do we change the world right now? And I think what he wanted to do was capture the sense that in spite of what was going on around us, in spite of all this stuff, that there are people who are out there struggling to make the world a little bit better each and every day. So I didn't sense there was like shock as much as he wanted to get a feel of that so that when he produced this, he'd be able to reflect it.
Well, in the interview that we did previously with Ceedy's wife, or with Billy's wife, Ceedy, she had mentioned that he started out, his activism started out right after World War II, when all his friends were dying in the war, and then progressed through that because he also grew up in the Depression. He was a young kid during the Depression. And so he saw the government impact and then the war impact. And now when he got a little bit older in the 60s, the civil rights and the humans being humans, you know, impact.
Yeah, he was a seasoned veteran of all those fights. You know, when you were saying that, I was thinking two people who I have that same image of is Woody Guthrie and Jack Kerouac. I mean, there was something about, you know, he's a sort of a thin, wiry guy, but, you know, you got the sense he was gritty and understood the gritty side of life and was in touch with it, so.
But he wasn't the romanticist in this picture. Let me tell you, I mean, the issue is set up against the contagion of death.
That's
It's
true.
powerful.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, and I don't know how many, I think this is the only work he did on universal health care, if you call it, I don't know, on the theme of the struggle
Right.
for universal health care. And it's,
Well, it's interesting, and I don't know this or not, but you know, it's pretty much black and white with just a touch of color on Uncle Sam.
what
And-
color, blood red?
There's a little red and is there a little yellow in there somewhere?
There's,
There's a red stripe on his pants.
Blue, red, gold, and just a basic yellow.
But it's largely black and white, and his civil rights drawings were also black and white, very stark, very, you know, the sense of harshness there. But then you see some of his murals around town, and you know, I remember seeing one at the State Capitol building. He's got a mural up there. He's got one over at Busey Bank. They're very colorful. They're very, you know, vibrant and bright and a lot of life and everything like that. So, and I don't know if it's true of all this political work, but this stuff had sort of a rawness and an edge to it that wasn't as much in some of his more commercial stuff when he would do